What's going on, everybody? Free agency's been a little slow, and this has been the talk of Twitter this week, so I figured I'd make a video on it. This is the Saga, that is Dahl to Detroit. If you've been on social media at all this week and you follow baseball accounts, you've probably seen this hashtag in a few of these pictures. In just a few short days, hashtag Dahl to Detroit was trending in Michigan and sports, being tweeted thousands of times. The hashtag gained enough traction to even garner a reply from Dahl himself, saying he appreciates the support, but the Tigers haven't offered a contract yet. So why did anyone care? Why did someone who wasn't even considered a top 5, maybe not even a top 10 free agent, to go to a rebuilding Detroit team get so much reaction? Something that seems this insignificant on paper got attention from some of the biggest baseball accounts on social media. Foolish Baseball, Giraffe Neck Mark, Fuzzy, even Jeff Passan. I'll do my best to break it down. The trend was started by Scott Bentley on Twitter, whose first use of the hashtag Dahl to Detroit was on December 8th. But that's not exactly where the story begins. On December 2nd, David Dahl was non-tendered by the Colorado Rockies, the team that drafted him and he played on for a few years. At 8:02 p.m. on that same night, Bentley put the movement in motion with this tweet, and then 40 minutes later with another tweet, for good measure. But why David Dahl? He's not one of the highest touted free agents this offseason. But the better question would be, why not David Dahl? It's less about him than it is about Detroit. The Tigers have been rebuilding for half a decade now, and it's been some of the ugliest product we've ever seen in Major League Baseball. GM Avila has told Tigers fans to wait. Prospects are on the way. But here they are 5 years later, and they're still in last place in the Central. And basically, this hashtag is born because Tiger fans are sick and tired of it. Let's look at what kind of player Dahl is and why he would have been a good fit for Detroit. In the shortened 60-game season of 2020, Dahl was having a rough time. He only played in 24 games, but the numbers were not good. A 470 OPS, a 19 OPS plus, it's supposed to be 100 at least, -1 WAR, 222 on-base percentage, and he was striking out 7 times for every walk. Downright awful. But this terrible 2020 is why he'd be perfect for the Tigers. They can get him cheap that way, and he's a talented player. Look at his 2019 stats. Over 100 games in 2019, he had a 877 OPS, a 110 OPS plus, .4 WAR, he had a -1.4 D WAR though, 353 on base percentage, and he was striking out only 4 times to every walk. He was an all-star in this season, showing the talent that I mentioned earlier. While Dahl is by no means perfect, he's a very high-quality outfielder. He debuted in 2016, and while he's been hit with the injury bug a few times, that shouldn't matter to Detroit. Let's compare him to the rest of the Tigers' outfield and see where he'd fit in. It's no secret that the Tigers have a terrible outfield, probably one of the top 3 worst in baseball, if not the worst. But when you stack Dahl up against their 3 likely best outfielders, you understand the full frustration of Tigers fans. So in left field we have Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart? No. He's the trash I just took to the curb.
Thank you, Scotty. In center field we have Victor Reyes, and right field Jacoby Jones. Ideally you might switch Reyes and Jones, but for this exercise it doesn't really matter. The first stat I'm going to throw out there is career OPS. Stewart and Reyes have the same at 676, and Jones is just a little behind at 665. Career OPS plus, your goal is 100 because that's league average, that's how the scale is based. Stewart 79, Reyes 80, Jones 76. Not good. In career on base percentage, the average of these 3 is 294, 2 300s and a 281. Not good. And then I put their salaries up there to see what they were being spent on compared to what Dahl would get. That outfield costs $2.73 million. Because that outfield is worth $2.73 million. And that might be generous. Then here's a chart stacking those numbers up against Dahl. So you can see the Tigers numbers I just named right there. And then here's Dahl. In OPS, he's hitting 150 points higher than this Tigers outfield. In OPS plus, he leads them by 25 points. Notice how he's over the league average mark. And the only category that the Tigers outfield leads in is salary, but for $2.73 million against what Dahl is projected to get, around $3 million, the Tigers need to understand that in order to get production, you have to pay for production. It's typically how this game works. The main argument to this movement is that the Tigers are rebuilding, and yes, that's true. But look at the fan base. They're so worn down and beaten because they've been just had their asses handed to them for 5 straight years. And they're looking at their front office like, hey, would it kill you to spend $3 million so we can see some watchable baseball sooner rather than later? And the biggest problem with this is they could have locked him up for 3 years. 3 years, $9 million for a high-quality outfielder with a high ceiling. That's a pretty good deal for a team that's going to be hitting their stride here pretty soon. not to mention what veteran leadership he brings that the Tigers lack. But right in the thick of this trend, tragedy struck. On December 11th, David Dahl signed with the Texas Rangers for $3 million, one-year deal. Tigers Twitter was devastated, but this movement wasn't going to go quietly into the night. Shortly after the Dahl signing, Tigers GM Avila took a few questions. And I'm usually one to speak out against team spending during a rebuild, but it's not like the Tigers fans were asking for Springer or Bauer. They were asking for a $3 million guy. That's a pretty insignificant free agent signing that would bring joy to a lot of people, especially when there's a whole movement behind it. And aside from this being a fan-based movement, Dahl has some real upside that could seriously help a contending Tigers team. Dude is only 26 years old. That's the same age as all those other Tigers outfielders I mentioned, and they're not part of the future plan because they're not good enough to be part of the future plan. Dahl is. But anyway, here was Avila's quote. I look at it as being disciplined this year and resisting an urge to really try to step up. The last thing we want to do is go out and spend some money that we're going to try to get rid of next year or the year after that. My guy, you have one of the richest owners in baseball as your boss and you can't spend $3 million to bring some joy to the Tigers fan base? Of course you couldn't. This is a man who traded his own son away. And so, from the ashes of Dahl to Detroit, I birthed this new hashtag, Avila to the couch. Tigers fans have been unhappy with him since he took over as GM in 2015. And if you ask any Tigers fan who really pays attention, they're not happy with almost all of his moves. While that could be a whole different video, I'm going to end this one here by saying I hope Dahl does great in Texas, and we wish him the best. And Tigers fans should be calling for the heads to roll in the front office. Avila's not the man you want at the helm of this rebuild. They're going into a huge part of the rebuild process, and that's talent development and execution at the major league level. Time is starting to not be on the Tigers' side, and Avila hasn't shown much reason to keep his job. So if you're a Tigers fan and you're watching this, make Avila to the couch a reality. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Subscribe, follow those accounts if you want to, like. We want to see some comments. I want to hear some suggested videos. I'm kind of getting sick of doing team breakdowns. I've done a lot of them. But yeah, thanks guys.